Hello everyone, Michael the Mechanical here, and today I've got the Triton again. It's back on the road, it's been driving, and I've also got a bit of an update. So as we can see, there's not really much change about the Triton other than these rims are nice and shiny because I ended up rubbing some stuff into them to clean them up. So I've got some little bits and pieces I'm going to fit to them as soon as I can because I've got some work to do. And there's a lot of other things that are going on. So the good news is the head gasket has been replaced again, yet again it's been replaced. It did a lot better this time than last time when it blew in the same spots in the middle, but this time it blew to the sides, which was quite interesting. And we're presuming we actually know some of the potential reasons why it could be causing that. So one, we've got a busted harmonic balancer, and we know that because it wobbles sideways a little bit. Two, the oil pump for the power steering is leaking all over the place, so there's tissues always down there, and I have to leave it there every morning like that and put it there when I leave the car sitting for any long period of time to avoid oil from the power steering dripping onto the belts, because that same belt that the oil's dripping onto powers the water pump. Without that belt functioning correctly 100%, the head cannot be cooled correctly, meaning it is going to overheat, it is going to blow head gaskets every time you load this thing up. So fixing all the leaks is essential in order to solve this problem. So the good news is I'm going to be rebuilding this power steering pump. I'm going to be getting some new lines built through another company. I can't do it myself because I don't have the tools, and then the cost to get the tools is going to be quite expensive, so I'm going to take it somewhere and get it done. This means I have to take the lines off, take them to a specialist who can make the lines, and then put them on. So some other cool news is I've actually built my very first heavy duty hose clamp, but I've also bought another one because they didn't have the right size in heavy duty. But first of all, I'll show you a solid hose clamp, and this one is going on the lower pipe down there because it has an M8. It's got an 8mm head, the socket size is 8, and it also has Phillips and flat. So this will go on that bottom hose there, so I don't have to suffer with the 12mm not fitting anymore. I have to use a Phillips head. And that old-fashioned hose clamp is going, and this is getting replaced with that. And this top one right here is getting replaced with this beefy mother, because it is going to give it better clamping. The unfortunate thing is it doesn't look like it fits perfectly into that rubber groove, but this is going to be what takes its place. And look at that, that's a freaking heavy duty sucker. I have never seen a heavy duty one of these before. I've never had one in my hands. It is very heavy for what it is. I think it's overkill for the purpose of fitting hose to the vehicle, but I mean, surface area equals better holding ability, I guess. And by having that big sucker on the top, it means I can tighten up as much as I like. The unfortunate thing is, I have to be very careful with this hose clamp, because with that ability, with the great power comes great responsibility. If I was to tighten this too much, it would crush this housing for the air cleaner. So that's the downside of having a clamp like this. You can't just go over tight. You have to be very careful what you're doing. So, what can we talk about next? Well, there's a bunch of blue stuff on top of the, power steering pump. That's all Holomar, and it is always designed or used to try and stop some of the leaks coming out of that power steering pump. Unfortunately, it didn't work as well as I hoped, but oh well. We tried, we failed. We'll try again later. The power steering fluid bottle, it still leaks, but don't know what comes in the kit. Might be a new seal for the lid, might not be, who knows. We'll have to wait and see. There's 2 seal kits coming because the freight was going to be $20 for one, so I decided let's get 2 kits. So if I get another pump and rebuild that, I can probably sell it and get a little bit of money back on what I've spent, and it helps a little bit. So by lowering this cab, oh no, I've just sold out what I'm going to be doing. So what was actually in the bag? Why are we lowering the cab? Well, for one, all the bolts are leaning one way. So if I got hit on this side of the car, the whole cab is going to collapse that way. Unfortunately, that's exactly what's going to happen. So what I've got is 90mm bolts, and they should penetrate all the correct rubbers. So I've got this rubber here, which is also missing a rubber that goes inside. And this is going to be replacing the one that's on this side, because this was actually not even held on. This one is not even holding correctly the way it should be. So this one's meant to be held on by this rubber, and this rubber has fallen off. That rubber looks collapsed, and I have no idea if this is going to work or not. I'm going to have to give it a shot though and see how it goes. But that bolt is completely rusty. I do not think I'm going to get these bolts off that easily. It's going to be a struggle. But we'll have to wait and see. The 2-inch lift kit is going. Unfortunately, some guys are going to be like, why are you getting rid of the lift? You should leave the lift in there. But unfortunately, it just has to go. There's no way I'm going to keep it and pay $100 a month for insurance that I don't need to pay. Also, the tread's unevenly worn, more on that side than this side, which is actually strange considering this side has the most play in the wheel. So I've got to do the toe rotation as soon as possible as well, so that's another job on the list. But to try and depict exactly what the leaning looks like, it's actually really hard. Oh, it's leaning forward. Oh, don't touch the stop button. But it's all leaning a little bit forward from this angle. It's not really leaning correctly. So actually, it sort of looks like it's leaning this way, so it's more that way. It seems like it's leaning a little bit. But that's not really safe. It's not a very good kit. It doesn't have the surface area it should have to clamp all the surfaces. It's it's not a really good fitted system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be removing that kit, but I can't just do it. There's actually going to be a benefit, a major benefit for me as a driver with passengers. The benefit I now need to share with you. So when that lift kit is in this car, that's actually a huge problem. And one of them is I get a stink in the car, but I also can't screw this down properly because these don't actually fit on here correctly. Nothing fits correctly, and when it leans over, it rips the shit apart out of this middle piece here. So I don't know if you can see these holes, but I can probably get my hand... Oh, no, I can't, but there's cracks in here. I can stick my hand through there, and you can probably see the damage now. And I get a stink through the car, and it comes through those holes. I hope you can see that, or not, because there's all that light. So what I can do is I can put my finger through one hole, and you can see my finger is, I don't know if you can see, you can't see because it's tissues. I'm trying to see whether you can see it or not, guys. So can you see my finger coming out? If I go back in, oh Jesus, yeah, that's the problem. And then all the stink comes through there. It's horrible. It smells bad. By lowering the cab, it will actually solve the thing where this is ripping that to shreds, because it will travel less further, and it'll be within the correct tolerances that it won't damage it, and it'll smell fine. Also, when this is leaning over, I'm always telling the passengers to move their legs more towards that door, because they're always got their legs spread out like, oh, I'm king whatever, you know. And they got their legs spread out so far that they're actually stopping me from using first or second gear. And when I hit and push the gear stick that way, I actually hit them in the knee or something, like, oi, well, I can't help it. I have to use my gears and you're in my way. So by raising the cab, they've actually made it so that, you know, travel is more their way. But by lowering the cab, there'll be less travel. It will go over their legs rather than actually hitting them in the leg. Because you can see it's actually in line with the chair, and I hit them in the knee. Okay, so what is the downsides? Well, one of the major downsides to lowering the cab is going to be the fact of all the work that is involved. But the other benefits, I should always mention all the other benefits first. So there's this line right here, and look how tight that is. That is so tight, and every time I rev the engine or something, it's probably pulling the hell out of that line. There is stretch in that line, but still, that's for the clutch master. That's not actually that's not good for this part. See, there's just so much play. This could have cut through. It probably is cutting through. I have no idea. But by lowering the cab, it will be in the correct position roughly. It won't be quite correct, but it'll be close to where it should be rather than where it shouldn't be. Also, looking at it, I think that's actually a brand new line that was put on there at one point, because it does look more greener than these other ones. So that's interesting to note. That line looks like it's been custom made for that, because it might have broken before. So they might have done that, but they didn't do others. So To do this, this has been uncoiled, and I don't know how I know that, but there's the coil. Actually, there you go, there's your coil mark there. So they uncoiled this 2 inches in order to get it all to fit. Now I've got to be very careful lowering this cab. That's going to come up, and it's got to come up this many inches. It's got to come up this much. So I've got to try and coil it back, or I've got to do something about it so it's out of the way. Because if it's in the way, something could happen. I'm going to make sure that goes through the right holes, brakes don't fail on me. I've got to do the same thing for this side. However, this line isn't as coiled up. It is right for the height of the vehicle, and it will be sort of a little bit protruded somewhere. I have no idea what's going to happen there, but that's going to change where that line's positioned, so it's going to be interesting how that goes. Other downsides is I have to unbolt the radiator, because this is a static thing that's attached to the car, but it's also dynamically attached to the engine, so it will only move so much as the hoses can move. It will probably potentially collide with that fan while the shroud is on the top. That shroud is a bottom shroud, not a top shroud, and if I remove the shroud, if I remove the radiator, then things will move a lot more where they should be in line with the engine. By the time this thing's dropped, I will need to find the correct bolts to put back into the radiator and back into the body, that it's all nice and secure. This job comes with a lot of other tasks as well. Another one I have to do is I have to drop the bull bar because it's too high in order for the cab to be lowered. And it's like, how do you do that? Well, there's actually about 4 bolts to drop the bull bar. The only problem is, and people aren't going to see as a problem once I explain it's not a problem, is this bar that I've actually made up. This is actually in a static position. It does not have any ability to be repositioned. However, the bull bar has some dynamic points, which is a good thing. There is a dynamic point, these dynamic points in here, and then these ones here, where it can be dropped about 1 inch, 2 inch, maybe, and it will probably be in the right position by the time it's dropped. The thing is, I should really deattach the bull bar before I do that. So the bull bar can be dropped about 1 inch or 2. It will be still above this bar. This bar needs to be cleaned up and whatnot, but other than that, she's actually pretty strong still, and she's holding well. Everything's doing well here. I don't actually see any damage from using it. I don't think any of the bolts are loose because they don't look like it. I think I'm using the wrong washers because they have sort of collapsed in at some point a little bit. So if I change those washers to high tensile, then they'll be the best washers I could possibly put on there. But the cab will have to be lowered because I don't actually... Yeah, I did show everyone. This is the reason we're going to be lowering the cab, is because this one here is collapsed and there is nothing supporting it here properly. So that's not properly supporting the cab. That's not very well engineered. It's unsafe to drive like that. So I'm going to fix it. Well, I have 5 other bolts holding the cab, so it should be fine, but there should be 6 in here. So I'm going to fix it as soon as I possibly can. And by possibly can, I have no idea when I can do this. Maybe this weekend, maybe next weekend. I have no idea. I'm still waiting for some parts. They won't come probably till next week, and I won't be able to work on this until the weekend. And I've only got 2 days to work on any part of the vehicle. I'm also in the process of releasing a game. I'm also in the process of working, because now I've got a job. This is on the road again because I need to get to work. I have to keep this going. I have to make this legal. I can't afford to get in any way, shape or form in trouble with this, because if I get this off the road, if this comes off the road again, I'm forced to spend money on that car, which is even more legal than this one. So this one's got some illegal things going on with it, but I'm fixing them up as I can afford to fix them, because this costs me $20 for rectification roughly, and I didn't know at the time. It's a lot of work, and if you make a mistake, then it creates a safety hazard. So it was one of those things I was reluctant to do. It cost $20, just do it. But you can't just do it, because then you have all those risks with the safety. Right now, it operates safely. I don't want to touch it. But now I've got some time. Take some time to move things out of the way. Make sure you don't break the lines. Make sure you don't have to bleed the system. And try to lower the cab slowly, carefully, and surely we'll be solving a bunch of other problems that the vehicle has, and it will make it a whole lot better. Well, it doesn't affect the car in any way, shape or form. It is still a hindrance and a problem that should be rectified. So, there we go. We're rectifying an issue that someone else created because it was not really good surface area for those pieces for this vehicle. So, what else is there left to talk about? I don't think there is really much. The coolant is circulating again through the system properly. It's using normal demineralized water, slight amount of antifreeze, anti-boil, but not enough to anti-boil the system. So, what's going to happen with this car is it's going to get some more, it's going to get a flush, it's going to get proper coolant put back in here, and hopefully we'll have no problems with this after we rebuild the pump. I'm thinking of putting the coolant in after doing all this other work because the water still has some anti-corrosive properties, so it shouldn't be corroding up. I think it is a little bit corroded, but because it's sort of brown, but it's sort of clear and sort of red, so it's a mix. It's hard to tell, but I don't believe it's corroding very fast. It's been running 1 week, it's not that bad, but I want to do this within the month. I want to get this done. I want to put this back on the road as properly as possible. I've also got a welding job right there to do sometime, because otherwise, I don't know if you can hear it or not. That is, the front mount has a crack in it right there. It's been welded once by someone else over here, but not over here. But I'm going to solve as many oil leaks as I can on this. And hopefully it will pay off in the end, because it's worth it. And if I take this cap off, she's not blowing so much smoke, so that's cool. Now, I didn't do a flush of the system or anything. I just replaced the oil that was already in there. It runs fine. I did the head gasket after I did an oil change. I should change the oil again. I'm not going to, because the engine's going to get rebuilt anyway. And cars flying down the road every few minutes is interesting. Not meant to be a popular road, but yeah. The car is essentially going to go back on the road again with a lot of good things happening for it. So, I don't know if there's any more things that I can really say. Everything's getting fixed up bit by bit. Once this is pretty close to stockish, standardish, maybe not perfectly stock standard, but you get the picture. Then I'll make little modifications as I see a purpose for it when it's nice and neat, because otherwise you're making mods to a car that looks like crap and feels like crap. Once you've fixed everything, built everything, and everything's right, then you can start making changes and modifications that are less risky, because everything's right when you start, not when you're got a crappy car and you make modifications, then things are a bit more risky. Do everything right the first time, put new parts in, like the rear. I don't know if I've done the video yet, but the rear suspension has been replaced, and it's a lot better than it was before, because it's not squeaking every time I drive up and down the road. New shockers, new springs. My friend wanted to clean it. I have to fix this up sometime, which it's going to break any time now, because I filled it the other day and it felt like it was so broken it wasn't even funny. So that has to be fixed ASAP. And that was designed to go in a different kind of vehicle, but it's alright for now. But it's going to be fixed ASAP, just like everything else has to be done. Is there anything else that I can point out? The tray's going to get rebuilt eventually, because it's got work to be done on it. The front suspension is going to be rebuilt. When the cab's lowered, it doesn't matter, because I can still access parts, which is awesome. But we're pretty much at the end of this video. There's nothing really more we can cover about the Triton, or any other cars for that matter. But, yeah, I'll leave it at this. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day or night wherever you are in the world. And that's it. Thank you for watching, and good night.